When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
This episode is brought to you by Honda. When you test drive the new Prologue EV, there's a lot that could impress you about it. There's the class-leading passenger space, the clean, thoughtful design, and the intuitive technology. But out of everything, what you'll really love most is that it's a Honda. Visit honda.com/EV to see offers.
This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.
Cole Palmer owners unite as the Chelsea man hits 4 against Brighton. Manchester United are rubbish, so what should you do with their assets? And who are the pick of the waiver options for Gameweek 7? Hello and welcome to the FPL Draft Zone, a podcast all about Draft FPL. I am Dom Crofts. I hope you are well. And we are back a little later than usual to take a little look at everything that happened in Game Week 6 and to look ahead to Game Week 7 with waiver tips, ones to watch, and a few trade dilemmas that you've been sending to us on social media. So let's kick things off with a reminder of everything that happened over the weekend, and it all started with the champions Manchester City, who travelled to St James's Park for a lunchtime kickoff with Newcastle on Saturday, and it finished 1-1 with Anthony Gordon scoring from the penalty spot to cancel out an opener from Vardiol for City. Then in the 3 o'clock kickoffs, Arsenal beat Leicester 4-2 at the Emirates in a game they dominated from a statistical perspective, but despite that they needed 2 late goals to secure the win, an own goal, and Kai Havertz wrapping up the win. Brentford drew 1-1 with West Ham at the G-Tech, Brian Mbeumo scoring his 5th goal in 6 league games for the Bees, but Thomas Souček equalising for the Hammers with his 3rd return of the campaign. And it was the Cole Palmer show at Stamford Bridge as the England man scored all 4 goals to beat Brighton, who adopted a kamikaze defensive approach. The final score in that one was 4-2. Everton got their first win of the season, as we said they would, with Dwight McNeil again continuing his fine form. He scored twice for the Toffees. Crystal Palace looked okay for 45 minutes and dreadful for the second 45 minutes. They remain without a win all season. And Nottingham Forest's unbeaten start to the season came to an end at home to Fulham, a Raul Jimenez penalty, enough to secure the points for Marco Silva's side. Liverpool won at Wolves with a Mo Salah penalty, giving them a 2-1 win. And then on Sunday, Liam Delap scored twice for Ipswich to earn them a point against Aston Villa. He's got 3 goals for the season now and appears to be the best striker from those newly promoted teams. Morgan Rogers got off the mark as well for Villa in this one. And then at Old Trafford, Manchester United got an absolute shellacking at the hands of Spurs. It finished 3-0. It could have been a lot worse as well. Eric Ten Hag's side are on the brink. Ten Hag is on the brink, and Bruno Fernandes was sent off for good measure. And then on Monday night, Bournemouth won the South Coast Derby 3-1 against Southampton. Evan Nielsen got his first goal for his new club. Semenyo also scored, but those who invested in Bournemouth defensive assets were left a little disappointed as Harwood Bellis scored a consolation for the Saints. So that's what's happened in Game Week 6, but whose performances made us all sit up and take note, and whose performances left us reaching for the sick bucket? It's time for winners and losers.
The FPL Draft Zone, winners and losers.
First up, let's talk winners, and Brian Mbeumo is having a fantastic start to the season with Brentford. His form continued this weekend with another goal against West Ham United. He's now got 5 goals in his first 6 games, which would be hugely impressive in its own right. But it's even more impressive when you consider that his overall XG for the season is just 2. So from those 6 games he's played, he should really only have scored 2 goals for Thomas Frank's men. He has shown a ruthless streak in front of goal. He scored a couple of absolutely brilliant goals as well. In the absence of Igor Thiago and Johan Visser, he is very much the main man in West London, and he is living up to the hype. Brentford's next few fixtures are pretty good as well, so owners of the Cameroon international will be hopeful of more returns in the next few weeks. Gabriel Martinelli owners can also feel pretty good about how things are going right now as well. Martinelli has got 3 returns in his last 2 games. He got his first goal of the season at the weekend against Leicester, and having been on this long old goal drought, owners will be hoping that that strike on Saturday can kickstart his season in front of goal. It was only 2 seasons ago, of course, that Martinelli ended the season with 15 goals and 24 FPL returns. Dwight McNeil is a player we've bigged up for a few weeks now, and he is now performing consistently well and getting consistent returns. He's got 4 goals and 2 assists in his first 6 games, playing in a team that has only just won its first match of the season, and this new number 10 role he's playing in is seeing him have more shots per game and make more key passes per game than ever before. And having finally picked up those first 3 points of the campaign, Everton are about to go on a run of a few very winnable fixtures, and McNeil will be key to their chances of getting those wins. And Liam Delap, he's starting to look like a very good striker option at Ipswich. He's got 3 goals for the season now. He's given Villa and Brighton a torrid time already this season. And I think the Tractor Boys are going to win at least one of their next 4 games, looking at who they're up against. They've got West Ham, Everton, Brentford and Leicester. And Delap will almost certainly have a part to play in any victories they get. As for the losers, Manchester United assets are looking pretty worthless right now after they got humiliated at home to Spurs. Bruno Fernandes was sent off, but they were already getting outclassed long before that happened. They continue to look pathetic in midfield. Their defence looks really ropey as well. Spurs ended with an expected XG of 5.41. And going forwards, there wasn't much to write home about either. So if you own any United players, you have got a bit of a dilemma on your hands right now. Eberechi Eze and Phil Foden also make the losers list for very different reasons. Eze has been an ever-present for Palace this season, but he's playing in a side that is shorn of its confidence. They are without a win all season, and the England man has just 1 return so far. They do look like the shadow of the side they were at the back end of last season, with the sale of Michael Olise seeming to have been a bit of a game changer for the Eagles, and not in a good way. And if they lose at home to Liverpool this weekend, which, let's face it, they probably will, they will head into the international break in the relegation zone. And Phil Foden, where he's still not getting minutes for Manchester City, he was on the bench again against Newcastle this weekend. He has played just 89 minutes across all 6 games so far this season, and 45 minutes of those were in Gameweek 1 against Chelsea. And defenders across the board suffered a bad weekend as well. Fulham were the only team to keep a clean sheet. Arsenal conceded twice, despite giving up very limited XGC. And outside of those 2 teams, only Brentford, West Ham and Liverpool gave up less than a goal's worth of XG, and none of them managed to keep out the opposition. So if you're looking at your backline to win you points, it may well be worth thinking again. I had high hopes for Brighton at the start of the season based on Hertzler's St. Pauli side, but they look very open at Chelsea. Aston Villa don't look even remotely solid either. So right now, it's all about that midfield and that front line if you want to win your draft. So those are your winners and those are your losers. But who was so good this weekend that if you owned him in your draft team, you basically won your head-to-head by default? It's time to reveal our fantasy hero of the week, and I think you already know who it is. He's ice cold.
Hero of the Week.
Yes, this week's Hero of the Week is Cole Palmer, who was off the scale good against Brighton this weekend. He got all 4 goals at Stamford Bridge. He could have scored more as well. He's now got 10 returns in 6 games this season already, which is the same as Erling Haaland. He is the leading point-scoring midfielder in the game, and he showed on Saturday that he can score anytime, anywhere, and from any place. One-on-ones, sublime free kicks. He has got the lot. He's also a creative outlet for his teammates. He's got 4 assists already this season. He's playing in a team that is getting better week in, week out. And let's face it, he is going to be their talisman all season long. He may be scrawny. He may not have movie star looks. His post-match interviews may be about as interesting as watching a dog have a poo on the sidewalk. But by God, he has got the skills. Cole Palmer is ice cold and fantasy gold. And that is why the former Manchester City man is our fantasy hero of the week.
Hero of the Week.
Okay, we are a few days away from another game week kicking off, game week 7, and then after that we will all have a little enforced break from FPL and return to the tedium of international football until the 19th of October. So let's make sure we end this block of game weeks in the right way with a boatload of points and a head-to-head win. And the best way to do that is to make the most of those waivers. So we're going to work our way through a few recommendations in just a moment. And as part of that, we're also going to suggest a few gambles, risky moves that might just work out if you're feeling brave enough to take them on. But before we do that, let's take a look at those all-important fixtures that will define your game week. And it all starts on Saturday lunchtime at Selhurst Park with Crystal Palace taking on the league leaders Liverpool. The last few matchups between these two have been pretty close. Palace won 1-0 at Anfield last season and Liverpool won 2-1 at Selhurst Park. The season before that, both games ended in draws. In the 3 o'clocks, it's Arsenal against Southampton. Russell Martin will be hoping for a reaction from his side after their performance against Bournemouth, but it won't be easy at the Emirates. Arsenal will be looking to banish the demons of their last meeting with the Saints. That one ended 3-2 2 seasons ago, and it pretty much ended the Gunners' title challenge. And Arsenal have actually only won 1 of their last 4 meetings at home to Southampton, and this time Aaron Ramsdale is returning to his old club, so who knows, maybe, just maybe, there could be a masterclass display incoming from the former Arsenal number 1. It's Brentford against Wolves at the G-Tech, with Brentford looking to score in the first minute of a match for the 4th game running. Surely it won't happen, will it? Wolves have had such a tough start to the season with games against Arsenal, Chelsea, Villa, Newcastle and Liverpool in their first 6, but they did win this one 4-1 last season with Hwang Hee-chan scoring twice. And besides, after this one, it gets much easier for Wolves. Next up is Manchester City at home, so that'll be 3 points then. Leicester take on Bournemouth at the King Power. Leicester will view this as a winnable fixture in what is going to be a long old season for them. These two actually met in the FA Cup last season at Bournemouth and Leicester won 1-0 thanks to a goal from Abdul Fatawu. It's Manchester City against Fulham at the Etihad. City will be looking to bounce back from 2 successive draws with a win. And if last season is anything to go by, they will get that win because they scored 9 goals against Marco Silva's side last year, winning 4-0 at Craven Cottage and 5-1 in Manchester, where Erling Haaland got a hat-trick. He is on a goal drought of 1 game, incidentally. West Ham are at home to Ipswich. The Hammers have yet to win at the London Stadium this season, but this surely represents their best chance to change that. Julian Lopetegui took Mohamed Kudus off at half-time in their draw with Brentford, so it'll be interesting to see if he returns to the starting lineup for this one. And then in the early kickoff, it's Everton against Newcastle. Everton actually won this fixture 3-0 last season with Dwight McNeil again among the scorers. On Sunday, there are 3 fixtures. Aston Villa will be looking to pile more misery onto Manchester United, and history suggests this will be a very difficult match to call. United won 2-1 at Villa Park last season. The season before it finished 3-1 to Villa, and the season before that it ended in a draw 2-2. Although, let's be honest, surely Villa are going to win this one, unless Manchester United suddenly rediscover their ability to play football. It's Chelsea against Nottingham Forest at Stamford Bridge. Forest have already won at Anfield this season and they are unbeaten in their last 2 trips to West London. They won 1-0 at Stamford Bridge last season thanks to an Anthony Elanga goal, and it ended 2-2 the season before that with Tayo Awoniyi scoring twice. And the weekend wraps up with Brighton at home to Spurs. Spurs will be looking to make it 5 wins on the spin after that North London derby defeat. Brighton, well, they'll be looking to bounce back from that defeat to Chelsea. 2 João Pedro goals helped Brighton to a 4-2 win over Spurs last season. but Spurs had won on their previous 2 visits to the Amex without conceding a goal. So those are the fixtures, but who are the players we should be targeting on this week's waivers? Well, let's have a find out, shall we? It's time for Waiver Once.
The FPL Draft Zone, Waiver Once.
So as usual, we're going to go through potential waiver pickups in fixture order, and that means we're going to be starting with Crystal Palace against Liverpool. And just to remind you, these waiver suggestions are diamonds in the rough. We are going to assume that the real fantasy gold has already been picked up in your league. So these are diamonds in the rough that may just help change the course of your season for the better. So, Palace, Liverpool, Palace, very much out of sorts right now. They are a hard avoid for me. They are ranking around mid-table in terms of XGC, so not awful, but not great, but certainly not worth investing in this week. They're coming up against a team with the second best XG in the entire division. And Palace's front line is not much of a threat right now. It seems to be very much in transition. Nketiah is playing out of position at the moment. His chemistry with Mateta has not quite developed just yet. Liverpool will fancy winning this, and winning this well, I suspect, and I think there's every chance they will keep a clean sheet as well. So in the unlikely event that any of their defensive assets are available on the waivers, get them in, but also keep an eye on their team against Bologna in the Champions League this week, just in case there are any injuries that might lead to opportunities at the weekend for the likes of Tsimikas and Kwanzaa, who probably will be available on your waivers.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You might say all kinds of stuff when things go wrong, but these are the words you really need to remember. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. They've got options to fit your unique insurance needs, meaning you can talk to your agent to choose the coverage you need, have coverage options to protect the things you value most, file a claim right on the State Farm mobile app, and even reach a real person when you need to talk to someone. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
It's Arsenal against Southampton at the Emirates, and like Liverpool, Gunners' assets will be very hard to find on the waivers. But if you're feeling brave and you're prepared to take a gamble, I actually think this is a game where Mikel Arteta may roll the dice and rotate his starting 11, because the Gunners have PSG on Tuesday, where I would expect them to play their regular starting 11. But that means it would not surprise me if someone like Raheem Sterling got a start on Saturday. He got 16 minutes in the win over Leicester. He scored and played well in the Carabao Cup against Bolton, and I actually think Arteta will want to give him a start sooner rather than later, so maybe Southampton is the one. There are worse fixtures to rotate your side for. Gabi Jesus may also be worth rolling the dice on as a one-week punt, but he has been getting reduced minutes to the max of late. And there is one other Arsenal asset we will be bigging up a little later, so stay with us for that. It's Brentford against Wolves at the G-Tech, and I think both sides will fancy their chances in this one. It goes without saying that if Fabio Carvalho or Kevin Schade are still free, they're worth wavering in this week against a Wolves side who have not replaced Max Kilman and who have also lost Mosquera for the season. But in Wolves' defence, I don't actually think they've been that bad this season despite their results. They have had a horrendous start in terms of fixtures, but there have been signs that they could turn it around. And outside of that Chelsea game, they have not been battered. And even in that game, they didn't really deserve to be battered based on the stats. Cunha is likely taken in your draft league, but I think they will score in this one. And that makes the likes of Carlos Forbes an interesting option for this week. He got 38 minutes against Liverpool and he looked pretty good. He joined the club from Ajax on loan just before the transfer deadline. He started his career with Manchester City, where he was prolific at youth level. He scored 29 goals in 33 appearances in his final season for their youth team. So the pedigree is there. I think he will get more minutes sooner rather than later, especially if the results do not improve. He is a high-risk, high-rewards option for the weekend. But as I say, against a Brentford side that have not kept a clean sheet all season, I think Wolves will score. And if it's not Cunha, maybe it'll be Forbes. Leicester against Bournemouth is really the first fixture, though, where there are some really ready-made viable options in the waivers. Steffi Mavididi has been talked about a lot on this pod, and guess what, folks? He's getting talked about again because his XGI numbers have been excellent in the 3 games prior to that Arsenal defeat at the weekend, and Bournemouth do give up a lot of chances, particularly away from home. Their expected goals conceded in just their last 2 away trips from the Vitality is 5. So Leicester will definitely get chances in this one. And Mavididi's XGI so far this season is 1.7, and that's despite only starting 3 of their opening 6 matches. So I think if they're going to get something out of this game, Mavididi will be key to their hopes. Facundo Buonannote's stats are not quite as good as Mavididi's, but he is another good option this week. He's got 3 returns already this season, a goal and 2 assists, and he's only started 3 games as well. So if you fancy Leicester to do something against Bournemouth, and I sort of do, I think either Mavididi or Buonannote would be solid picks. As for Bournemouth, all the key assets will surely be taken, but it doesn't take me to tell you that if there's an Evan Nielsen, a Semenyo or a Tavernier, all of them are decent options this week. Manchester City and Fulham face each other at the Etihad. Fulham have been excellent this season, but I can't see them getting anything here. Having said that, Traore has done damage to City in the past, and his pace on the break could be invaluable to their hopes. So if I was going to waiver any Fulham asset, it would definitely be Adama Traore. As for City, most will be taken, but Jack Grealish has been low-key excellent in his appearances so far. He got an assist and maximum bonus against Newcastle last time out as well, and he could be a decent route into their midfield if you think he'll get the nod ahead of Jeremy Doku. City play Slovan Bratislava in the Champions League on Tuesday, so see who starts that one and maybe roll the dice on Grealish if you fancy his chances. It's West Ham against Ipswich. In smaller leagues, the likes of Liam Delap may still be available, and we've already talked him up on this episode. West Ham, on the other hand, well, they are in disarray, but Ipswich have the second worst XGC in the league. So if you have a Bowen or a Kudos or an Antonio or maybe even a Thomas Souček, this may be the week that finally you see some returns. It's Everton against Newcastle at Goodison Park. Newcastle look much more like their old selves in that draw with Manchester City, but their last away performance was bad, real bad, against Fulham, and they have not been good travellers for a while now. So I actually fancy Everton to make it 2 wins in a row in this one, and I would be half tempted to get some Everton defensive coverage, which I know sounds mad. That is based more on my own inclinations, by the way, than anything statistical. Jared Branthwaite returned to Everton's starting 11 in that win over Palace at the weekend, and he kept 12 clean sheets after breaking into the first team last season. So I do think they will improve defensively now he is back. And if he's taken, James Tarkowski has the 8th highest XG of all defenders in the Premier League so far this season. If you fancy Newcastle, on the other hand, to do the business at Goodison Park, an obvious pickup is Harvey Barnes. I suspect he's probably taken. Jacob Murphy, though, was getting a lot of credit for his performance against Manchester City, so he could be worth a waiver. He's created the 4th most chances for the Toon this season, behind Anthony Gordon, Alexander Isak and Barnes. Aston Villa take on Manchester United on Sunday. This feels like the perfect time to sack Erik ten Hag for United, with a 2-week international break to sort out his replacement. If you presume he has now lost the dressing room, and all signs are that he has now lost the dressing room, this could end in anything for Villa. United's defensive frailties were evident all last season, and even though Ten Hag has now brought in his own players, he's got his own back four, this season they look woeful. After that Spurs game, where they conceded over 5 goals worth of XGC, they now have the 4th worst defensive statistics in the division. The only teams with worse statistics are the 3 promoted clubs, Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton. And I fancy Villa to win this one, and win this one well. So if any of Ramsey or Duran or Tielemans or Bailey or Rodgers are available, snap them up. And even someone like Onana as a 1-week punt could be a good pickup, given his threat from set pieces and United's inability to defend. Villa have not kept a clean sheet so far this season, but this may well be the week that they do. I do think Manchester United are just going to capitulate this weekend. Concert is the safest pick from a defensive perspective. Ian Matson is the biggest gamble, but with the biggest potential reward. It's Chelsea against Forest at Stamford Bridge. Sancho looks good, doesn't he? Whew. If he's still free, he'd be a decent pickup. And Gusto would be a good route into their defence with the perennially injured Reece James still injured, although I wouldn't say they look hugely impressive defensively. As for Forest, they've already beaten Liverpool at Anfield, and I don't think this will be an easy game for Chelsea. Long term, maybe the fact that Awoniyi started against Fulham is a good sign for managers looking for another striking option. He only lasted a half. We don't know if he was taken off for an injury or for a tactical decision, but we will see, I imagine, over the next few weeks, depending on how many more minutes he gets. Morgan Gibbs-White is back from suspension after his red card against Brighton, so if any managers were naive enough to bin him off last week, take advantage of that move and bring him in for the long term. And then talking of Brighton, they take on Spurs at the Amex. As we said last week, winger roulette is very much in progress for Brighton, and neither Minte or Adingra started against Chelsea. However, if you are prepared to take that risk of roulette, then Rutter might be free in your waivers. He scored against Chelsea, he did okay as well, and I still think Evan Ferguson is a below-the-radar potential pickup for the long term. With João Pedro out injured, his route into the first team suddenly does not look as hard as it once did, and we've all seen what ability he has when he does get up to full fitness. And it does seem as well that Pervis Estupiñán is going to be Brighton's first choice left back, and he loves to get forward. So if Brighton can find a slightly better balance between defending high and defending so high that they're basically playing 11 forwards, he may earn you some rewards as well. As for Spurs, all the best assets will be taken, but if Heung-min Son remains out injured for the weekend, Timo Werner could be a decent one-week punt. He's obviously not the best finisher, but if Brighton do play that high line, his pace should see him get a few opportunities. So those are your waiver options for this week, but we did mention that there is another player we wanted to flag in the Arsenal-Southampton game, so let's have a little bit of one to watch.
The FPL Draft Zone. One to watch.
And this week's one to watch is Arsenal teenager Ethan Nwaneri, who came off the bench in Arsenal's win over Leicester and helped to change the game with his impact. His first touch of the ball saw him skin a couple of Leicester players and test the keeper from long range. He showed amazing composure in a red-hot atmosphere despite his young age. His first touch at times was unbelievable, and his ability to be a man makes him the perfect profile of player for a team that is going to play an opponent that is going to sit back and make life difficult. A team like, let me think of one, a Southampton. I mean, there is no guarantee he's going to start this weekend, but if he does, and he continues to show the sort of form he showed against Leicester and against Bolton in the Carabao Cup, where he scored twice, then his minutes could increase very, very quickly, especially given the continued absence of Martin Ødegaard and the fact that it is still a bit of a mystery as to how long the Norwegian is going to be out. If it is going to be a good while yet, Nwaneri is the most natural replacement for him. Thomas Partey has the shirt at the moment. That's allowing Rice to play in the left 8 role, but he does not play regular football very often. At some stage, he is going to break down. He is riddled with injury problems, so it would not surprise me if Arteta gives him a rest sooner rather than later. If he does, I'm sure he'll drop Rice into that 6th role, and that means Nwaneri's chances of a start will increase massively. And if he does start, it would not surprise me to see him absolutely smash it. He's a gamble. There's no guarantee he will start, but if he does and he plays well, I can genuinely see Nwaneri getting a lot more minutes over the course of the campaign than anyone imagined, and that is why he is our one to watch. Right, let's talk trade targets.
The FPL Draft Zone. Trade targets.
We've had a few messages on X this week from managers facing some trade dilemmas, so we thought we'd answer a couple of them now. First up, at the Draft Premier has written saying this: I have Ødegaard and Bruno Fernandes and have been offered Sancho and Son. Thoughts? So Ødegaard and Bruno for Sancho and Son. I would say stick with what you have. Keep Ødegaard, keep Bruno. This reeks of a manager trying to take advantage of the fact that both are out right now, when in reality, if you break that trade down to what it really is, he's offering you one premium midfielder in exchange for 2 premium midfielders. Jadon Sancho has started very well for Chelsea. He is one of many options in attack for them, though. He's not guaranteed first-team football on a regular basis. He's got 4 assists in his first 3 games. You can't argue with that, but they have come from just 0.6 XGI, so he is massively overperforming his expected goal involvements, and I'm not sure that can last. In contrast, Bruno Fernandes is massively underperforming his XGI. He's got 1 assist so far this season from 3.2 expected goal involvements. And the harsh truth is, he will become a much better asset as soon as Manchester United bite the bullet and fire Ten Hag. And I think that will happen after game week 7, because I think they're going to lose to Aston Villa. And then it seems like the perfect time to change the guard at Old Trafford. We also spoke about Ødegaard just now when we were talking about Ethan Nwaneri. It is hard to know how long he's going to be out for, but I would hold on to him for now until there is more information. Or test the water with a straight swap for Son. Ødegaard for Son, and suddenly that's not a bad deal for you. If you can get that one over the line, if the manager in question is an Arsenal fan as well, maybe he'd consider it. He might even find that one hard to resist. And Aaron James has got in touch with this trade offer: Raul Jimenez and Pau Torres for Cunha and Aina. Aaron has Jimenez and Torres. He also already has Emi Martinez in goal, so he has already got Villa defensive coverage. So in reality, when you break this deal down, it's basically Jimenez for Cunha. Jimenez has looked good since getting back in that Fulham side at the expense of Rodrigo Muniz. His stats over the last 12 months have been good as well. In the last 23 games, he's got 10 goals, so just under a goal every 2 games. He's also playing in a better team, I would say, than Wolves, and he's playing up front, whereas Cunha is now playing a slightly different role for Wolves following the signing of Strand Larsen. But having said all of that, I would do the deal and I would go for Cunha, because as I mentioned earlier, Wolves have been pretty good in most of the games they've played this season. Their fixtures have been disgusting, but they do turn for the better in a few weeks' time. And despite their start to the season, Cunha has already scored twice in those opening matches, to add to his 12 last season, where he also got 7 assists. After Brentford this weekend, Wolves have Manchester City at home. Yuck. But then it's Brighton, Palace, Southampton, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, West Ham, Ipswich and Leicester. So 9 very nice fixtures that take them all the way up to Christmas. I'll say them again: Brighton, Palace, Southampton, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, West Ham, Ipswich and Leicester. And I would expect Cunha to do very well out of those games. Jimenez has also got the shirt right now at Fulham, but you cannot rule out Muniz winning it back off him at any point, whereas Cunha is not just nailed, he's basically Wolves' talisman. So for me, I'd do the deal, get it done, and welcome Cunha into your ranks, young Jedi Aaron. Right, that is it for this week. Game week 7 starts on Saturday the 5th of October at 12:30pm BST with a game between Crystal Palace and Liverpool. The deadline for your waivers is the day before, Friday the 4th of October at 11am BST. And then it is an international break after this game week, and then I'm actually heading away for a few weeks. So while I will try my best to get something out to you, it may be a little bit more piecemeal than usual, so please do bear with me. If you haven't already though, please do subscribe to the pod. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star review would be very well received. If you listen to us on Spotify, a nice few words would be lovely as well. And of course, you can also follow us on social media. We're on X and Instagram. Our handle on both is FPL Draft Zone, so any trade dilemmas, any waiver thoughts, any questions or conundrums, please get in touch. It's always lovely to hear from you. But that is it for this week. Good luck ahead of game week 7. I hope your points haul is massive and your head-to-head game ends in victory. But until next time, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.